Earlier today, Ottawa was abuzz with the news that Canada's Elections Commissioner had asked the Mounties to execute search warrants for the Tory headquarters here in the city, all part of what's been dubbed an in-and-out advertising financing scheme used by the Conservatives during the 2005-2006 election campaign. Martin, what's the issue and why the raid?
Well, Peter, this is part of an ongoing feud between Elections Canada and the Conservative Party, and today it took a significant turn. This is the building housing the headquarters of the Conservative Party of Canada, just about 2 blocks from Parliament Hill. And this was the scene after reporters learnt that 2 RCMP officers had this morning entered the building with a search warrant looking for documents and information at the request of Elections Commissioner William Corbett. As you see, reporters were staked out with their camera crews, and they were all trying to get some sort of comment from either the Conservatives, the RCMP, or the Election Commissioner.
Sir, can you please give us a comment about what's going on inside?
Sorry?
How many more hours do you expect to be in there? Could you tell us that much, sir?
No. Sorry?
Who are you guys with? Are you guys with the RCMP bringing in lunch? Looks like you're going to be there for quite a while.
Are you Elections Canada or RCMP?
How did it get to this? An RCMP squad raiding the offices of the Conservative Party, shredders working overtime in some back room, spinners in frantic damage control. I mean, how did we get here? Why did Elections Canada have to get a search warrant and the help of the RCMP in the first place? Why did they have to pry information from this government's clenched fist? Why did we get here?
Mr. Speaker, the Deputy Leader of the Liberal Party asks a very good question because we have been cooperating fully. We've provided every document that has been requested by Elections Canada as a consequence of the lawsuit which we initiated with them over our interpretation of the law. So his question is a very good one. We don't understand why this was necessary.
They campaigned that they were going to be as pure as the driven snow. Well, it turns out, Mr. Speaker, that it's not much different over here than it was over there. And the RCMP has had to be called in again. The question is, why? What have they got to hide?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, once again, Mr. Speaker, in this particular case, a case that is before the courts because the Conservative Party initiated the case, Mr. Speaker, the fact of the matter is that the Conservative Party has given to Elections Canada all of the documents that it has asked for. As the House Leader said, it's unclear in our mind why exactly Elections Canada is undertaking this action today. Its officials were scheduled to be examined by our lawyers tomorrow. In any case, that is going to go ahead at some point, and we remain extremely optimistic and confident about the public resolution of this matter.
I do find it odd when I look at a photograph, as I did this morning, and I see someone knocking on the door with cameras, with news cameras present, and to see that there were Liberal Party people in the hallway. I find that very strange indeed.
I think the Conservatives have a problem. Shakespeare once said, "Methinks thou doth protesteth too much."
Conservative candidates spent Conservative funds on Conservative advertising. That is the shocking scandal that we are talking about here today.
Overspent.
And now Elections Canada wants, I didn't interrupt you. Elections Canada wants to dictate to local candidates in our party and our party alone what constitutes national content and what constitutes local content, and by extension dictate what we as political candidates can do with our advertising in terms of what we put in it. That is an infringement upon our rights to freedom of expression, and we are not going to tolerate having a bureaucrat come in and tell us what we are going to put in our advertising, because we have a thing called free speech.
So I'm clear. Are you saying that you may well have broken the law, but that the law is wrong?
We are saying that we have followed the law by allowing
that you have a different interpretation than Election Canada.
Local candidates have the right to decide what is advantageous for them in their campaigns to advertise. It's not up to other politicians or bureaucrats to dictate to local candidates what they can put in their advertising.
Okay. Will the Prime Minister consent to unseal the warrant documents which convince a court that the drastic gesture of an RCMP raid was necessary?
That's a question that's better directed at Elections Canada. They're the ones whose consent he's seeking. And we also have the same question. Why was it necessary? Our party had offered to cooperate in providing every document Elections Canada asked for. In fact, we did provide every document Elections Canada asked for. It leaves a very serious question. Why was this necessary? We don't understand that.
This government has obstructed Elections Canada outside the House, and they've insulted Elections Canada inside the House. But the question is about the character of the person who leads this government. Why is he obstructing an institution charged with protecting the integrity of our political system? Who does he think he is?
Mr. Speaker, I really honestly thought the member for Etobicoke Lakeshore was a better man than that to assert as fact things that are simply untrue. The fact is simple. We have provided to Elections Canada in our dispute every single document they have asked for. Nothing has been hidden. So you're right, it poses a question, why is this Elections Canada search necessary? But the essence of the real issue is, why is it that Conservatives are not allowed to talk about their national leader and their national policies in an election? Why are we treated differently than every other party? That's why we took Elections Canada to court.
There is a lawsuit by the Conservatives against the Director of Elections, and I would dare say that the stakes are very high, because if the Conservatives are right, that there was partisanship here on the part of the person who's supposed to be there to manage this neutrally, we've got an institutional problem. If they're wrong, the Conservatives have a really serious problem of their own in terms of their credibility.
Your own party and the NDP and the Bloc have all challenged Elections Canada decisions in the past with regard to campaign financing. We reserve that right. We disagree with them on the ruling.
That's not the issue.
And we are challenging them on their ruling. We have every
Mike, it's totally
and
separate.
That's exactly what we're doing. It's not at all separate, and we are defending what we think is the correct position. And Elections Canada, that's why we call this behavior by them is a bit odd, because there was no need for this. Every bit of information that they've requested in the past, we have provided.
Is that why your leader called Elections Canada jackass? That's the word of Stephen Harper, calling Elections Canada jackass and saying the Elections Commissioner is the elections.
Do you want to take that quote entirely in context or out of context from 7 years ago?
And saying the Chief Electoral Officer is under the thumb of the Prime Minister. That's what your leader said.
Do you want to put that quote in context and within a proper time frame, Ralph?
There is a bizarre relationship.
There's a bizarre relationship between the Liberal Party and the understanding of what Canadians want Parliament to be talking about. And you guys can go on with your fantasy scandals.
It wasn't a fantasy that the RCMP turned up and raided the Conservatives. That is the hard fact.
You've already heard about the letter written by Stephen Harper when he ran the National Citizens Coalition. That was back in 2001. And it concerned attempts by the Chief Electoral Officer to keep a lid on election results. Jerry Nichols was at the NCC with Stephen Harper at that time, and he's now a Conservative commentator and blogger, and he joins us from Toronto. Mr. Nichols, what do you make of this? Is this a fantasy fishing trip by the opposition, or do you think there's possibly something here?
Well, when I saw this happening, it immediately struck me that this is bureaucrats at Elections Canada trying to get back at Stephen Harper. I mean, we've had a feud. When Stephen Harper was president of the NCC, we had a blood feud with the bureaucrats at Elections Canada. We went after him pretty hard, and I think this is them going after him. I think it's just a question of revenge.
Remind us a little bit about the blood feud between the NCC and the Elections Canada. According to the law at the time, when the polls close in the East, the results are not supposed to be communicated to the West. And a British Columbia blogger, as I recall, said he planned to post Eastern results in the Western time zone, something that would threaten our democracy. Was that not the issue?
Yeah, the blogger, his name was Paul Bryan. He's a British Columbian software developer. And in the year 2000 federal election, he posted real-time election results on his website, which violated the blackout gag law we have in this country. Anyway, the Elections Canada bureaucrats, dispatched the police to this guy's home. They raided his house. They seized his computer hard drive. They seized some other information. They brought him to police headquarters for interrogation. And in our mind, this was typical of what's wrong with Elections Canada. These guys are overzealous. These guys are bullies. They were going after this individual, way overkill. And that's what Stephen Harper was reacting to. We sent out a fundraising letters to our supporters, and he was very blunt. He said, the Elections Canada are jackasses who are out of control. And I think he was right.
Do you think at the end of the day, what the Tories did will be found to have been legal?
Well, you know, Mike, with this little raid that happened, now I think that's almost irrelevant what will happen at the end of the day in court. The court of public opinion's already been carried out, and that was through the television cameras watching the RCMP, you know, raid the Tory offices.